March Madness has come to Underdog Fantasy with a little bit of a twist. You guys know, not a college basketball expert, but I brought on my great friend, Alex Hardin, FearMyTurtle from Establish the Run, who is the college basketball expert. We are going to dive into how to win in March on Underdog Fantasy.
It's Short King summer, dude. It just feels like no one in fantasy sports ever learns anything. Does he mistime it, or is Brock Bowers just a grown man? Brock Bowers is just a grown man. Dare I say, Rich, football might be back. In the words of Lane Johnson, this offense looks constipated. It's Short King summer.
All right, Alex, we are here. I actually did not think they were ever going to do this, but our good friends at Underdog did a college basketball best ball tournament, the championship run, $10 to enter. 10K to first. Probably, I bet you wish it was a little bit larger, since you and Sean and the boys over at ETR have been running pretty good in these streets. What was your thought when they first opened this contest? Do you like the way it's structured?
I was kind of surprised they actually did this. It's interesting. The structure, I mean, we'll get into it, but I mean, it's just a lot of teams, a lot of unknown, and with like NBA playoff best ball, you Eastern and Western Conference teams before the playoffs. Obviously, here we just don't know. So drafting before the brackets come out, you're just kind of guessing and trying to put together teams that have a chance to run good with seeding so like your guys are meeting in the finals. But obviously, I don't think this is going to fill before the bracket comes out, so you'll have a chance to draft with the full bracket as well. So I'm just kind of spreading my drafts across like the start through lead up. So I'll get some of both sides of that.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the structure. I will pull that up right now. The structure of these drafts, we are waiting on 4 to enter. What is the structure of these drafts, basically?
So just like college football, they are basically just doing the NBA structure.
Oh no. Oh, this is going to be really bad. There are
with like guards when playoff format is like you start one of each of those 3.
You cut out for a second, and I just literally got, Alex, I just got so scared that your internet went out from the storms where you are.
Yeah.
So you have to go over the structure one more time for us.
Yeah, just like NBA playoff best ball, it's a guard, wing, and big. You're starting one of each of those, and then 2 flex. So you're starting 5 guys and then 5 bench. So these are 6-team, 10 rounds drafts. So 60 players are getting taken in each draft. And then when you consider that the player pool right now is 363 teams, like it's massive. So we're only dealing with like a small portion of the actual player pool. And obviously things change as we lead up to the tournament. A lot of teams are dead to make the tournament. A lot of teams in limbo. So at ETR, we're updating the ranks each day with just like updated percents of advancing. So basically turning that into projected games and then coming up with a player projection from then. So it'll solidify as we get closer, but there are a few teams that are on the bubble. But just in this format, you're probably not considering most of those teams anyway. This lends itself much to like the power teams, like the top 4 teams in each region, most likely. The most interesting thing about the format is like the round 1 of the contest is the round of 64 and the round of 32. So you're getting all of those games in the first scoring period of the underdog contest, which makes it that like if your team cannot win the first game, they're pretty useless in this competition. So it cuts out a lot of those teams just right there. So I thought that was interesting. Then the second scoring period is the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. The third scoring period is the Final 4, and then the final one is the championship game. And the cutdowns are interesting too, because like the first cutdown's only top 2 out of the 6-man pod advance, so it's not really that tough to get out of that first round. And then the second one, which is the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, 1 of 8 advance. So that's the real tough one. And then I believe it's like 1 of 5 to go to the finals. So interesting format for sure. We've only had a few days to kind of digest it, so still trying to wrap my head around it a little bit, but ultimately just trying to draft teams that are live based on the information I know at the time.
So, I mean, I guess that is a good question then. What constitutes live? So basketball, a little bit different. So for example, in NBA playoff basketball, you are not taking Lou Dort. You're not taking Aaron Wiggins. They're on the team that's favored to be in the championship, so they are going to have, points available. Whereas in NFL playoff best ball, you are taking Justice Hill. You are taking Juju Smith-Schuster. You're taking DeAndre Hopkins. You're taking Jahan Dotson, Kenneth Gainwell. These guys could theoretically, in the Super Bowl round, be the difference between winning. You have the 4 nutted guys and you have Kenneth Gainwell, or you have 4 zeros and you had Terry McLaurin who helped get you there. So how are you balancing advancing versus having the nuts in the final?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a handful of teams that I'm willing to go past like the third guy on the team anyway in terms of stacking. So if I'm not, and those are usually like the Auburn, Duke, Houston type teams where like there's a lot of volatility game to game. All it takes is like the best guard to get 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes, and then like it's wheels up for the other guards potentially. So and you're just yeah, I mean, obviously it's great if you make if you have like a team that has like 6 to 8 guys in the finals, and you're like maybe you get that random like 5th man who just goes off in the championship game. Where NBA is more of a series, so like I think it's probably less volatile from that perspective, just because you're getting a longer series. Here we're just playing single games, so like anything can kind of happen. But to your point, I'm not taking like the 5th guy on like a fringe team that's like 10% to make the Elite 8 or something like that.
All right, this is literally how far behind I am. Who is the number 1 overall seed? Or how about this? Who right now, who do you have projected to be the 4 1 seeds?
I mean, I checked brackets. I'm not the bracketology expert, but Auburn and Duke are pretty locked in, and then it seems like Tennessee and Houston are the other ones right now, with Florida kind of knocking on the door. In terms of the top over number 1 team, I would probably said Auburn yesterday, but they dropped a tough game on the road against Texas A&M yesterday, and like Duke's looked great, and like a lot of people who do advanced analytics work in college basketball have Duke as like a really elite team, especially compared across like the last teams in the last 20 years. So say Auburn and Duke are pretty safely the 1-2 seed. And that's interesting for this format because I feel pretty comfortable drafting Auburn Duke stacks because I don't believe they're going to be on the same side of the bracket. I think they'll almost for sure be on opposite sides of the bracket. So you're setting yourself up with a team that could have 5+ guys in the finals.
So that's pretty interesting to just, I mean, even to start thinking about the brackets and like, oh, well, you shouldn't take the guy from Auburn because then maybe he's going to play the guy who plays for Florida or whatever. Cameron says Auburn, Duke, Houston locked, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee round out the top 6.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, guys, literally do like anything I tell you about college basketball is either going to come from the odds on unabated or like Ken Pom power rankings. All right. We are in a draft, Alex. We are the pick 1.4. I say we. I'm not telling you anything with this.
I might need a tiebreaker, and that's coming from your brain. So,
okay.
I mean, the drafts are either like you're in the top 2 and you go down one path with broom or flag, or all other ones. It's kind of wide open after 1-2. There's a huge drop off. I mean, I have Jawan Roberts ranked 3rd, but like I'm not taking him 3rd every time just because I want to have some Florida stacks, and if you do that, you need to take Clayton 3. So, 4 is kind of wide open. 1-2 is always broom flag. I think they're fairly interchangeable, but beyond that, it's pretty open in terms of direction.
All right. So then in those 2 spots, are you always taking teammates with them? Are you always, I mean, again, I don't know what the positional distributions are. So does college basketball work the same way the dance currently works, which is wing is the worst position, where it's just like impossible?
Wing is the toughest for sure, followed by big, and guard is just kind of loaded with depth.
Yeah. Wing is brutal to the point that like Giannis is a 1st round pick, even though the Bucks are, I believe, 6th in championship odds, maybe even 7th. All right, we are on the clock. Who are we taking at the 1.4?
I'm leaning Roberts just because Houston stacks are pretty easy to get to right now, and I think that could change in the next week. If we were at 6 and like Sears fell to us, I'd like to grab Sears and then pair him with his teammate Grant Nelson. But I fear if we take Sears right here, Nelson's going to get sniped before it gets back to us, and then we get a situation where it's tough to like build a Bama stack without having both of those two. So we'll go with Roberts, and like now that we have him, I'll put a bunch of Houston guys on our draft board.
Okay. What's from one of the 1 seeds, what is the most that you're taking from one team? Like, because I assume, and maybe this is not true, that the positional distributions are such that even the 4th guy on the number 1 seed might not be getting drafted 100% of the time.
Yeah, I would say the top couple teams, like the top 4, are pretty much always getting drafted. We're back on the clock. It's a little early for Uzon, even though I have him ranked fairly high. I think we can. We probably need to build out a secondary stack, and this is where it can get kind of tough.
Well, there's no big. There's literally no big
yeah.
by
we're gonna have to wait on that. I'm gonna lean Ziegler and try to build out a little Tennessee action to go with Houston. So we'll see how it falls. Like you get all sorts of guys in this. Like if we get a bunch of no Badgers, like they're taking a bunch of one-offs one time, just like blowing up people's stacks left and right, and it can get pretty crazy. So I think I've learned with these drafts, you just have to continually pivot and try to build something that makes sense along the way. And like most of the time, your plan's not going to work out, especially if you get a bunch of no Badgers who are not building stacks themselves.
Well, what's sort of interesting is I assume that actually if you were really good at projecting college basketball players, you could probably get a lot of teams to the semifinal. The thing is I mean, this contest is just insanely top heavy. Like what is 10th place even $1,000 in this? I'm assuming it is not.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like definitely building for like just getting like overstacked and weird teams to the finals. So I agree. I think we can pull the trigger on Uzon here. He's a guy that was like 35 ADP last week, and he should shoot up to like 15 to 18 within the next few days, I believe. So I don't think it's too much of a reach here, and we need to kind of lock in some teammates.
All right. So our distributions are, we have 2 Houston Cougars. Is that right? Houston. Yeah, that's right. And then
you had me second guessing myself for a second, but yeah.
And then 1 Tennessee. No, we don't have a big, and I am just like literally sitting here looking at the ADP, and yeah, it is. Well, that's just kind of how college basketball works. Every team plays like 4 guards anyway. It's like you'll have 4 guys who are 6'4", and then one either. Some teams don't play big at all. Some teams just have the one 6'8" guy out there who is their nominal center. Now, are all these guys good individual scorers, or have we done like the Jaylen Brown thing where we take Jaylen Brown is a good scorer but not a great scorer, and he's got like fine upside, but he has the good positional distribution?
Yeah, I mean the ranks are mostly tied to like it's a combination of 2. Like Braden Smith he's a really good scorer, but like Purdue is kind of middling in terms of projected games. I guess we're on the clock again. So since wings are thin, getting a wing on both of our primary stacks is pretty appealing. So grab Milicic for Tennessee. So we're 2 Tennessee, 2 Houston right now. Feel pretty good about that. They're 2 bigs who are not great scorers on our draft board. We can probably look at them in the next couple rounds. And then the good thing with big is there are a few bigs that are like really good scorers that are not like super on teams that are projected to make like the Elite 8, but they can probably get you some help through the first few rounds and kind of help carry these teams that are loaded with the Final Four caliber teams. So that's a strategy I've been using a lot, like looking at like Amari Williams and some of these other Graham Ike and some other these bigs just to kind of round out your team at the end once you have your stacks built.
Now, how viable is it to basically just be like, this tournament could be won by a team with like only undrafted players? Like if you think about it, like, I don't know, a 5 seed could totally make the final game, right? Could totally make them. I don't even know who the 5 seed would be. Let's just say I know Kansas is like terrible this year. Who are we going to take Tugler here because he's our big?
Yeah, I'm debating because Tugler may not make it to us at 33, and like if we go without the Houston big, it's going to be a bit painful. Lanier's a good scorer, but just going to get the first big, get it rolling.
So again, I don't know what team this would be, but conceptually, you could auto draft these. You wouldn't even have to log in. And you'd be like, I don't know. I think Texas Tech is Marquette, whoever, just pick your team. I think this team can totally win the championship. I think they're underrated by the market. You could get 100% exposure to that team. You could have 150 bullets of the nutted lineup with that team. And then you could have totally normal rankings other than that. You could draft off ADP with the 5 Texas Tech guys, the highest. And I would guess that is pretty viable here. Although I assume NIL has made college basketball more legitimately top heavy.
Yeah, I just don't think auto drafting these playoff formats is like ever going to be
it
like
actually
super
doesn't
viable.
work in
Just because like
no.
Even if like a Marquette makes the finals, they're still going to play another team, and like
Right.
if you don't have that team with them, like you're pretty dead anyway. So I guess that's a good and bad thing with these. It's just like you can't have people that are smart that don't want to put time in, like actually max these because it just doesn't make sense. So I think you're rewarded by spending time and drafting thoughtful teams in this format.
I agree. Playoff basketball is actually like my favorite format. Like I've been loving to draft the dance. I will probably draft some of these. I might need to check out the rankings from my friends over at establishtheRun.com. I do love that they are consistently putting these out. And I actually I don't know. I don't mind that it's $10,000 to first because I also don't want them to be taking a huge amount of risk on. Like if they did 50K to first for this, and like college stuff is geo blocked somewhere, which is harder for them to fill. So we have a Tennessee guard, two Houston guards, Houston wing, Tennessee wing, and a Houston big. How often through 6 picks do you only have 2 teams represented? Is this common?
It depends on which team you start with. I'm if I get a team like Houston, I'm more willing to just like anchor my entry to them on this one. But if for some reason, if we started with somewhere else, like I would say probably about half the time I have 2 teams, half the time I have 3 teams at this point. It's just where it falls. But Houston's one of those teams that stacking seems to work out just like how the players are distributed across most drafts. But we are pretty weak at the big spot. So
so is this a spot where you would consider taking a one-off guy to just be like, that guy smashes when he plays, but he might only play 2 games?
Yeah, for sure. And that to me is like Amari Williams is great for that because like Kentucky might get like a 3 seed. Like they're not dead to make a run. Like I really don't know why his ADP is so low. So he's a guy I'm taking a lot near the end. And you can I'll put his teammate. My favorite Kentucky guy to pair with him is Otega Owe, who's a guard for Kentucky. He's someone who you can get in the last round as well. So I think we have a fairly strong team. We're definitely geared towards Tennessee, Houston. That's why I probably we already have 4 Houston and 2 Tennessee, but I'm okay adding a 3rd Tennessee just to like overstack that potential finals game. Like Gainey's a big scorer off the bench. Like he's live to score 25, 30 real points in a game. So I think if you make it to the finals with some chalk teams, like you're going to need to go a bit deeper than just like 5, I would imagine, to have a shot at first place. So probably a little early we could like even more reinforce these other positions if needed. Like Graham EK, we'll move him up and slide him in just to kind of, I think we definitely bolstered ourselves in terms of like round 1 advance rate by taking 2 pretty strong one-off bigs here.
So I feel like round 1 advance rate is actually going to be bigger in this than even in NFL playoff best ball. Like NFL playoff best ball, NBA playoff best ball, the advancing scores are at least drafted. Like Terry McLaurin was 100% drafted at NFL playoff best ball, but there are going to be who is the fucking the guard who made all the threes, the guy who looked like the accountant last year. I mean, I want to say he made from Oakland. He made
Okay,
his,
that guy was so tilting. He could never miss in the tournament.
in this version, that guy's not getting drafted, right? This tournament, if they had ran this last year, he would not have been getting Jack Golke.
Yeah, okay,
Golke.
that's the guy.
Yeah. So there are going to be advancing scores that are like basically round 10, round 9, round 10, you can be taking advance rate guys who are actually not advance rate guys in the sense that they're not helping you advance to the money rounds because they're playing for shitty teams. So the round one advancing is really easy, but I feel like there is going to be an outsized amount of dead teams in the second and the third rounds of this contest, just because also it is just so unpredictable. We don't even know who is playing who right now.
Yeah, for sure. And like I've taken some teams where I have like 5 Auburn and 4 Duke. I really like those teams for later in the tournament, but I'm kind of worried that they will struggle to make it out of the first round, especially if like Auburn and Duke blow out their opponents early. Like it's tough to compete against the guys who draft a bunch of one-off like smashers who are probably going to mostly play 2 games the first round, who could outscore your stack that's designed for the finals. So I think really it's trying to find that balancing act between the two, between like advance rate guys and building your teams like to win the contest. I'm probably leaning more towards just overstacking and trying to get something through to the finals that no one else has, and they might struggle to make it through advancing through the first round, but I'm okay with that, I think.
Generally speaking, the trade-off in playoff basketball is you have to trade a little bit of round 1 advance rate for a little bit of finals equity. That is just sort of the equation that you have to do. Now, that doesn't always pan out. Like, great example of this, not this year, but 2 years ago, the year the Chiefs missed the 1 seed and they played the Dolphins at home. They were both great advance rate pieces and finals round pieces. So, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Houston plays pretty fast. Like they actually score fantasy points. This is not a team that like grinds you to the bone, or is that wrong?
I would say they're like the biggest grind you to the bone team in college basketball.
Okay.
But
all right, never mind.
Point,
that's what I said. No. I don't know shit.
But to your point, is like they score a lot of peripherals because they get a lot of steals, a lot of blocks. Like they're one of the they're pretty elite offensive rebounding team. So like they do generate a lot of like counting stats just because of like they make games tough. It's not just like sit back and like I don't know. They have some guys who can score some fantasy points, but like yeah, I mean their games are not like visually free flowing. Like they're gonna kick your ass.
I'm going back to their 19th. This is their data from last year. They were 19th in offensive rating last year. So it's literally what I remember.
Oh, no. Don't get me wrong. They are very efficient.
They just play slow.
They're like a top 10 offense, but they're 360th.
Right. That is just so good. I'm like, yeah, they're sick. They're literally dead last in adjusted tempo. Okay. So as I proved, college basketball, not
no, but sport. Like you're right. They're good offensively, and that's the difference. A lot of these grind you out teams that are like top 5 defensively.
Bama is the fast team. Yeah. I remember playing this guy Grant Nelson in college basketball DFS last year, and just being like, man, this guy can't move. He's so tilting. Yeah, he is.
He's been playing like low 20 minutes a game this year. I don't know what's going on with him. I wonder if he gets ramped up during tournament time, but. Yeah, he's tilting, but he has like insane upside for sure.
Do you have any teams that are higher in your personal, probably not metrics, and are you higher on I don't know, Clemson than the market, St. Mary's, BY, any of these teams?
Yeah, and like I think defining the market for this is way different. The ADP market for Underdog does not reflect like the betting market or any like public sentiment. Like I think with these kind of contests, people just get anchored to like the default ADP that Underdog puts out when they get posted. So like a perfect example of that, we'll look at the Houston guys. LJ Cryer's 5.5 ADP. I have him 21st overall, whereas like the other guard I have 15th and he's 27 ADP. Those have been slowly converging like since the ranks came out, but like people just they don't have information, they want to draft teams, like they're just going to follow like the default ADP. So there's a lot of situations like that. Like Purdue, I have these top 2 guys way higher than ADP. Some teams that may not have higher than ADP, but like Michigan's kind of an interesting team for this format. They'll fall somewhere between like a 4 and 6 seed most likely, and they have a big, a wing, and
I was
a
going to say
trio of guards.
they always have a big. Who's the big? Who?
Big Russian guy from Florida Atlantic, Vlad Golden. He's pretty awesome. And then Danny Wolf from Yale is their wing. He's kind of a big also, but they're a pretty fun team to watch. They have the old FAU coach from last year, Dusty May, who runs a pretty fun offense. So, and pretty unique style schematically that could be difficult for some teams that don't see them in the tournament. So like Michigan's a team I'm trying to get some 3-man stacks of for sure.
Did BYU fire their coach from last year?
Mark Pope went to Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he got the Kentucky job when Calipari left. So yeah, BYU is interesting. They had a big win last night, won at Iowa State.
Why? So they don't shoot a bazillion threes anymore, and they play slow.
Oh, they still shoot a lot of threes. They don't play super fast, but they run a deep bench. They're tough for this format just because they run a deep bench and they're not really projected to play a lot of games so far. But they make a run. Like I could see like doing a Richie Saunders demon type team.
Is Kansas going to miss the tournament?
No, I'm pretty sure they're locked in, but that could be wrong. Again,
don't they have a losing record in the Big 12? I guess they're 19-11. I mean, let me tell. That's actually funny. I just changed. I was literally wearing one of my old Kansas basketball shirts at the gym this morning. I love to wear my Kansas shit here in Missouri because everyone is a Mizzou fan, and let me tell you, fuck the University of Missouri.
No, Kansas is definitely getting in the tournament.
Okay,
they're pretty much a lock at large.
What's Hunter Dickinson in year 10 of his college career?
Not getting any better, just cashing the NIL checks. So he'll have a great career in like Israel or something, I'm sure.
I mean, yeah, he will. Well, does that league? Jacob Poland played there. All right, we have the third pick. What do we do?
This kind of sucks. I was hoping we'd get a 1 or 2. Let's go a different route this time. We can go Florida. That's pretty fun.
All right, let's check in on
Walter Clayton.
Let's check in on Florida's advanced metrics. You guys can all learn as I learn. Florida is 4th in offensive rating, 8th in defensive rating, 70th in adjusted tempo, 37th in net rating. That seems like a crazy. This is like not the profile of a team I would expect to be Ken Palm number 4. But
yeah, I mean, they've looked pretty good. I think they're like a 2 seed in bracketology. They have a big game against Alabama today, so that'll be interesting. They just have a bunch of pieces that are pretty solid. Let's see. I guess we want to get their wing, Alex Condon, who's coming back from injury at 10 if he slips to us.
I mean, this is all Red Badgers. I assume people in these are fairly cognizant of, it doesn't make that much sense for me to take this guy's guy because it just fucks my team over. So there we go. We have a double Florida start. What is SJU? Is that St. John's?
St. John's, Patino's team. They're pretty tough this year.
Wow.
Yeah, got them relevant.
Patino. Is Wojnarowski's team going to make the tournament, or is St. Bonaventure going to make the tournament?
That's a good question. They've been on like 2 DFS slates this year, so I don't think they're going to make it. So I guess it's another year of GMing to upscale their roster. Maybe they'll be in good shape. But
all right, we got a question. Do you think North Carolina makes it into the tournament?
I would say no. I think they're like 40% or something to make it at this point.
Damn. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, they did a terrible job with the roster, and they have no inside presence, and they just get annihilated.
All right, are we taking another Florida guy here?
We're going Florida. See, with this format, like there's so many teams that you can build these stacks early of these teams that are like high Final Four probability and still get other good players around them. I feel like in NBA it probably dries up a bit faster.
Well,
There's
in
just so
NBA,
many more teams in this.
so in NBA, what happens is basically after round 2, after Jalen Brunson goes, you're done with premium fantasy players. Still good fantasy players, but you're done with guys who are going to average over 40 fantasy points in a playoff series. But then there's a huge swath of guys who will average 33, and then you have to start making a decision. Do I start taking good fantasy players from 6 seeds or really good fantasy or bad fantasy players from 1 seeds? Like, do I take Peyton Pritchard or do I take Steph Curry?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like with so many more teams in college, like you don't have to make that drastic of decisions. Like you can balance it a bit more as you work through.
Are you in on Arkansas, Mr. Calipari?
They're not making the tournament, are they? Yeah, they are. They've been doing a bit better lately. No, not really in on them.
90th in offensive rating, 16th in defensive rating.
All right, let's see. Should we take Will Richard and see if Hawk can drop to us? Like Hawk is a guy we're gonna risk it for the full Florida.
I think if you're doing 150, my perspective would be you should try and build as many super combos as possible. If you're doing 20 and you just want to like, I will probably do. Frankly, realistically, I'll probably do about 33 of these. Once I learn the teams a little bit and the bracket gets set, I'll probably sit down and hammer some of these out. And I probably won't try and build super teams, but if you're going to do 150 or 100 of these, you should just try and get the crazy combo that only occurs 8% of the time.
So our guy got taken next, so he did not get to us. So I would have rather had the second wing than the guard, but that's fine. The problem with Florida is their lack of big, so we're gonna have to start looking elsewhere for some big action. I probably will take Queen from Maryland if he falls to us in this next pick. It's crazy to me how far Braden Smith drops in all of these drafts. But
what's his deal? Purdue?
I mean, Purdue, like what they made the finals last year. But they obviously lost Edie. Like, I don't know, they're pretty much a 2-man team for fantasy, Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. So I think that's a good stack if you can get it in the mid rounds. They just seem to be a bit underrated right now.
All right, so we have 4 Florida players, and then we took this fella. Oh, there we go. We feared the turtle. We took Derek Queen, a big. Maryland is.
So the interesting thing about Maryland is they have no bench whatsoever, and they just run their starting 5 like 33 minutes plus a game. So I actually think they're kind of interesting for this format of just drafting, like, I don't know, 5-man Maryland stacks and then put some good pieces around them. Like, I don't know. They're just an interesting team in that regard because they play a bit differently than a lot of teams in terms of their rotations. Yeah,
well, and of course there are going to be blowouts, really in round 1 too. Like, if Florida gets a 1 seed, the starters play 29 minutes because they're up by 37 points. You might want to have some Maryland guys with them. In fact, almost probably you'll need some advance rate guys there.
Yeah, and I mean, like Maryland could work themselves up to like a 3 or 4. I think they're a 5 now. They're getting a lot of buzz to make a big run in the Big Ten tournament, so we'll see. They're better than they typically are. So I've definitely homered in a few stacks here, and they fit pretty nicely in this format because I don't think they're going insanely high, and they're big heavy, which fills a need in this contest. So I think they're pretty interesting from that perspective.
Is Oklahoma going to make the tournament? They're like 40s in Ken Palm. They might have to do well in the tournament.
No, I think they're pretty dead unless they run the table. I'm seeing 16% chance.
God damn, bro. That's so brutal.
All right, we need to go kind of off the board. We need to get a third team into the mix. I'd mentioned Clemson, so we'll grab their wing, who's really not a wing, Shiflin, and then we'll add some Clemson guys to our draft board. Mainly,
I like
Hunter.
Cam Jones. He was fun in the tournament last
Yeah,
year.
he's a big scorer. He's like another guy that's just like going pretty late. He's going in 50s, and he's like a big time. He can drop 40 fantasy points for sure. I think people just are not super bullish on Marquette at this point, who I think are on like the 6th line right now, which, I mean, hey, I think he's a perfectly reasonable draft pick in this format.
Didn't Caleb Love used to be amazing? Am I making?
I mean, he's always been like an enigma. Like he'll give you like 35, or he'll give you like the dumbest game you've ever watched. Like, I don't know. He's kind of like, he has some Nick Young like qualities.
Oh, well, that's kind of my language. Arizona is 14th in KenPom, so I'm assuming that means they are roughly going to make the tournament. It's just this is such a mind meld to try and think about, because there are just so many ranges of outcomes. Like nothing is more noisy than a single elimination college basketball tournament, you know?
Yeah, I mean, something weird could definitely win this thing. And so my question I keep asking myself is, how weird do I need to be getting in these drafts? So I don't have a good answer. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think you can just...
I think probably weirder than you're getting. What would handicap that answer, though, is that I would guess 15% of the teams in this are just dead. Just totally like they're poor structure to advance. And
if you want to see some of those dead teams, draft between like 7 and 10 o'clock on weekday nights. Those are where we'll see some really dead teams. I've noticed. Yeah. I don't know if that's true for other sports, but like I see a lot of no Badgers in that time frame.
Yeah, that is the wonky time to draft. Roughly that many will be dead. Then I'll say 10% of the field's drafting off your rankings. So that means they're just going to be really like your teams, you know, like not saying you're going to be duped or anything, but just going to say they're roughly going to be agreeing with you. Then some other meaningful percent is just going to be 1 and 2 seeds, just like strict 1 and 2 seeds. So a huge percentage of the pool is not going to reflect the probability that, like, I don't know, Colorado State could make the Final Four. I totally pulled that name out of a hat, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what like Nerdy Tenor or Brick would say. They would probably say if that many people are playing bad, you should just play the best plays and hope to get there. They would say getting weird is probably just when your opponents are also playing a GTO strategy.
Yeah, so my kind of thought is to play it straight up until the point where I feel like it's getting more efficient and then start to go off the board. I think like just the ADPs are so out of whack still that I feel like this is not the time to go off the board yet, but I'm assuming closer to the tournament time, that's where I'll grab some of these teams that I haven't really got much of leading up to it.
I think that's reasonable.
All right. We have one more spot. We have 3 Florida. Do we want to get a Florida big? He doesn't, it's a bench guy. I think we'll just lean into the
you definitely should not be taking Florida bench guys, I think.
No, you're correct. So we have 3 different teams in this draft. So Florida, Maryland, Clemson. So when you have 3 teams, you need at least two different teams at each of the position to make sure like any of the combos of the 3 meet in the finals, you're good. So we have Maryland and Clemson covered as a big, Florida and Clemson covered as a wing, and then all 3 represented as guards. So any combination of those 3 teams meet in the finals, we're in pretty good shape here.
How often are you trying to build for multiverse teams like that?
I mean, this has probably been more of the case like before we know the bracket. I want to like getting 3 different teams, whether it's like a 3-3-3 and then a 1-off or 3-4-3, whatever. you're just trying to, I think it gives you a better shot of not getting on the same side of the bracket. Whereas if you do like, I don't know, like a 5-3-2, or I don't know, it's just like, I feel like you get you give some more outs with not knowing which side of the bracket these teams are on. But I mean, it could be wrong. It could just turned up being like really dumb drafting before the brackets come out, but it's a max 150. I'm not getting through 150 if I wait. So figure I'd spread them out.
I don't think it's dumb to draft before the bracket is out. I think it is, because what always happens in these games is the more information there is about who plays who, tout content, whatever, is there are combos that you want to get that become impossible by
Sure.
ADP. I mean, there are, and maybe there are combos you also want later that become appealing. As Mr. Eggers notes, ADP is vastly changed.
It
since
definitely has, yeah.
Open. So if you're trying to kind of diversify your portfolio, then you would, I think, want to be doing both. Are you gonna 150 max it?
I'm gonna try, but once I have to go to a wedding on Selection Sunday, an out of town wedding too. So no bueno. So I'm traveling back Monday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is like prep for the tournament stuff. So I don't think I'll be drafting too much once we get there. So beyond just like updating the ranks and maybe firing a couple in. But no, it's been fun. I'm glad Underdog's doing it. I kind of hope the contest fills so they can run it back next year. I spent all this time setting up and all the team matching stuff with Underdog, so they better run it back next year, or it's going to be a lot of wasted effort. But no, I'm glad they're trying the college stuff. I know it's tough with only being in limited states, but they're.
I mean, I hope they do.
First is nice.
I hope they do 50K to first college football next year. What was it? 20K to first college football? Is that right?
Something like that. I
don't recall.
Won. Well, he won a smaller
the side contest. Yeah.
Do you think that there could be more widespread adoption of college if the contest is bigger, or are people just so hyper focused on NFL and all their different offerings that it's just always going to kind of be in the background?
It will just never be as big, just because college sports are not as big.
Yeah, and it's just so much easier to bet on college sports than like do anything fantasy related.
100%. But I think, I mean, like, dude, they do 15K to first NBA BR slates. Like we can get 50,000, for college football. What is the ETR product going to look like during March Madness?
All right. So we went live yesterday, I believe. So we have Underdog ranks, which are going to be updated each day, just as like teams win and lose and like their seeding chances change. They'll be updated. Then starting next Tuesday, we're going to be doing player props in Discord each day. So like the smaller conference tournaments and stuff. Power conference tournaments, we're doing props each day. That should be fun. I think we had around like an 8% ROI last year. So looking to build on that. And then starting the Tuesday of the tournament, we'll be covering all the DFS slates with projections, ownership, shows, top plays, all the standard ETR stuff. So one price gets you everything for the whole tournament, includes best ball, player props, and all the DFS stuff. All
right, there we go. Pretty sick. How much is that going to run me? If
$149.99.
$149.99. I'll tell you this. It's a pretty good deal if you're going to play in this tournament. If you're going to play in this tournament and you want, I will say this. When I play college sports stuff, use Alex's stuff. I'm not telling you where to spend your money or how to spend it, but I will say when I play college football DFS, when I play college basketball DFS, I use Alex's stuff at Established to Run. That is the only endorsement I'll give it, is that I financially benefit none from this. I am not an affiliate from Established to Run, but that is just where I choose to do my personal business. Alex, thank you for hopping on. I hope that I also hope that we fill this contest. And they're actually gonna have massive BRs probably for day one. What do you? I bet day one of the tournament, day two of the tournament, they're gonna have a very big BR, like probably like $6,000.
Yeah, I haven't even thought of that.
Yeah.
I think I probably need to set up ranks for that too if they're going to be big. So that's a good reminder. They'd be running BRs all season for college basketball. They're pretty small, but I'm surprised they're actually running them.
Yeah, I bet that happens. All right, guys, there we go. That's it. Very quick rundown of how to play college best ball for March Madness, and we'll see you back soon.
It's Short King Summer, dude. It just feels like no one in fantasy sports ever learns anything. Does he mistime it, or is Brock Bowers just a grown man? Brock Bowers is just a grown man. Dare I say, Rich, football might be back. In the words of Lane Johnson, this offense looks constipated. It's